Meeting the love of their life and getting married is something that many teenage girls dream of. Caroline Crouch was no different. A young girl in high school, only 15 years old, she was flattered by the attention of a financially well-off 27-year-old pilot named Babis Anagnostopoulos. He would often fly his helicopter over her school, which won her heart. Eventually, they got married, but what seemed like a perfect fairy tale love story would soon turn into a tragic murder that shocked the world. On Tuesday, May 11, 2021, at 4:30 a.m., Babis Anagnostopoulos was horrifically awakened from his bed in their home. At the time of the incident, Babis had rented a 2-story house in the suburbs of Glyka Nera, a peaceful area on the outskirts of Athens, Greece. Babis, who was a commercial helicopter pilot, didn't have much time to react as 3 men, with their faces hidden by hoods, broke into the house. They were armed with pistols and quickly overpowered him. After tying him up, they blindfolded him with duct tape, leaving him unable to see or defend himself. Then they turned to his young wife, Caroline Crouch. Caroline was just 19 years old and the mother of an 11-month-old daughter, who was also in the house at the time. The noise and chaos woke up the baby, who began crying. The intruders, speaking with Greek and Albanian accents, repeatedly demanded money from Caroline. Little did she know that this was not just a robbery, but a nightmare that would end in her murder. Caroline Crouch was born on July 12, 2001, to a retired engineer named David Crouch and his wife Susan de la Costa in Athens. When Caroline was just 8 years old, her family moved to the island of Alonissos, where she grew up. She loved the island's beautiful coastal surroundings, and she quickly developed a love for the sea. Caroline was passionate about scuba diving and swimming, spending much of her time in the water. In 2017, during a Good Friday parade, Caroline met her future husband, Babis. At the time, she was only 15, and he was already an experienced commercial helicopter pilot. Despite the age difference, the two fell in love. 3 years later, on July 15, 2019, they got married in Portugal. To outsiders, their relationship seemed like a perfect love story. On the night of the break-in, Babis and Caroline were filled with terror as the intruders demanded to know where the money was hidden. Desperate to protect his family, Babis told the men where the money was stored, a place no one would have expected. The intruders found the money inside a Monopoly board game box, where Caroline and Babis had hidden their savings for the dream home they planned to build. The men took the cash, but didn't stop there. They continued to search the house, taking jewelry and other valuable items. Although Babis and Caroline had given the intruders everything they had, the men still wanted more. Fearful for their lives and that of their baby, Babis and Caroline begged the intruders to leave them unharmed. Babis could hear the terrifying screams of his wife as the intruders threatened their daughter with a firearm, although he was blindfolded and tied up. When Babis finally regained consciousness, the house was silent. The only sound he could hear was the painful cries of his infant daughter. With great difficulty, Babis managed to reach his mobile phone and dial emergency services when responders arrived at the scene. What they found inside the house was horrifying. The living room and kitchen were destroyed, with drawers pulled out and belongings scattered everywhere. The Monopoly box, now empty of the couple's savings, lay open on the floor. A security camera, ripped from the wall, was found on the living room couch, but its memory card was missing. The most chilling discovery was the body of the family's 7-month-old husky puppy, Roxy, who had been strangled with her leash and hung from the staircase. In the main bedroom, first responders found Babis on the floor, his eyes and mouth covered in duct tape and his hands and feet bound. On the bed, lying face down, was Caroline Crouch. Their infant daughter was beside her, crying and trying to wake her mother up. Tragically, Caroline was already dead. When Babis was freed from his restraints and saw his wife's lifeless body, he was in visible shock. The woman he had loved for the past 5 years was gone. The police quickly secured the scene and began their investigation. They initially believed that 4 men were involved in the crime, 3 who entered the house and 1 who kept watch outside. According to their findings, the intruders had approached the house through a dirt road that led to the back entrance. When they failed to break in through the rear door, they removed the security pins from a basement window and entered the house that way. Once inside, they killed the family's dog before heading upstairs to the main bedroom, where Babis and Caroline were asleep. After tying up Babis and smothering Caroline, the intruders searched the house for valuables, taking the cash and jewelry before fleeing. The police determined that Caroline's death had not been quick. She had suffered for about 6 minutes during the attack. Bruises on her body showed that she had tried to fight back, and injuries on her lips and tongue suggested that the intruders may have used sharp objects to torture her. Despite the brutal nature of the crime, there were no signs of sexual assault. As the investigation continued, the police found very little evidence left behind by the intruders. The only physical clue was a hood that one of the men had worn, which had fallen off during the struggle with Babis. Although it was a small piece of evidence, it was enough for Babis to get a glimpse of one of the attackers. The police concluded that the intruders had escaped with 10,000 euros in cash and jewelry worth around 20,000 euros. Despite the efforts of the investigators, the case remained a mystery for some time, with no clear leads on who the attackers were. The brutal murder of Caroline Crouch shocked Greece and the world. However, as time passed, the investigation took a shocking turn. The police began to notice some strangeness in Babis's account of the events. Certain details didn't add up, and forensic evidence suggested that the story Babis told might not be true. The breakthrough came when the police analyzed data from Babis's smartwatch and mobile phone. The data revealed that Babis was active during times when he claimed to have been unconscious. Additionally, Caroline's smartwatch showed that her heart had stopped beating hours before the time Babis had claimed the intruders left the house. These clues led the police to conclude that Babis had staged the entire crime scene to make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Faced with the evidence, Babis eventually confessed to the murder of his wife, Caroline Crouch. He admitted that there were no intruders and that he had killed Caroline after an argument. According to his confession, he and Caroline had been fighting frequently in the weeks leading up to her death. On the night of the murder, the argument escalated, and in a fit of rage, Babis smothered Caroline with a pillow while their baby slept nearby. After realizing what he had done, Babis decided to stage the scene to make it look like a home invasion. He tied himself up, killed the family's dog to add credibility to the story, and called the police after waiting long enough to make it seem believable. Babis Anagnostopoulos was arrested on June 17, 2021, and his confession shocked everyone who knew him. What had initially appeared to be a tragic home invasion was revealed to be a carefully staged cover-up for a brutal act of domestic violence. Caroline Crouch, a young mother with her whole life ahead of her, was murdered by the man she had loved and trusted.